Hello, everyone. I'm here today with Oreen Yousuf, who's going to be telling us about a really cool project that he and a team of other scholars have been working on for, I don't know, how long have you guys been working on this?
I've my PhD is I think I'm like a year and 8 months in, but I've been working with the team that I'll talk about in a bit for maybe a year at this point.
Okay. So for about
Yeah.
a year, working on
Mm.
a really cool project using eScriptorium. And we didn't pay him to say the nice things that he's going to say about
Yeah.
eScriptorium, but they've been doing a lot of work with the platform. And so I wanted to have him on to talk about kind of what he and his team have been doing and the really cool research and literatures that they've been working with. So, Irene, I'm going to hand it over to you. Introduce yourself and tell us what you guys have been up to.
Yeah, thanks, man. So yeah, my name is Oreen Yousuf. I'm a PhD student at Uppsala University in Sweden, in natural language processing. And my project is basically on Ajami HTR/OCR, but also NLP. And there's a lot of acronyms, so it's handwritten text recognition slash optical character recognition, which the main distinction from what I've seen from the literature is just a focus on handwritten manuscripts versus printed manuscripts. And also NLP, which is natural language processing, or people say computational linguistics. Um, and yeah, so I kind of built this project when I was applying for my PhD because not because I'm very interested in languages and linguistics, but also interested in culture and history, especially around West Africa. And then also because I have my master's in NLP as well, I really like programming and computer science. So I thought it would be a good opportunity to kind of use OCR to extract text from Ajami languages in West Africa in particular, and see what kind of NLP tasks I can do with that digitized text. Um, and Ajami just basically means anything that isn't Arabic. And when you're talking specifically within the African context, I know this term Ajam or Ajami can be also used in the Persian world, but I'm not involved in that at all. But in the African context, it just means like any manuscripts that are written in the Arabic script, but it's not writing Arabic, it's writing some other language. Um,
And how
for
many
example,
languages? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
oh yeah, how many? There's I think the attestations are about 70, but or no, like 80 something. But in total, with um, I think the total number is around 94, with attestations plus speculated languages of using the Ajami scripts. Because sometimes you can find fragments in manuscripts or inscriptions from really long ago, and sometimes people have difficulty determining exactly which language it is. But for pure attestations, I think it's about 80, something like that. And it's everywhere, like the most north, like in Tunisia for these Amazigh languages, all the way down to the south, even like Afrikaans in South Africa. That was fun fact, because I know one guy in South Africa and he would want me to mention this, but that was the first writing system for Afrikaans actually in South Africa. It wasn't Latin, but it was Ajami. Um, yeah. So there's about 94 different languages in pretty much every corner of Africa that used or continues to use the Arabic script. And so the way I started this project was I was looking for a way to digitize Ajami manuscripts, and digitizing the text in particular. Because without the digitized text, you can't really do any NLP. You need that digitized text to do anything. So I spent a very long time around the internet and trying to like curate the highest quality Ajami manuscripts um, for the project. And also because Ajami, there's this taxonomy that Ajami scholars kind of use, where they want to classify what the document layout is of these manuscripts. And and probably the people watching this are more familiar with the Middle Eastern document layout for Arabic, Persian, Urdu, Ottoman Turkish, these kinds of languages. It can get very, very complex, and like it can go in like every kind of which way direction. Um, and yeah, it's there's a lot of overlap with West African and East African Ajami manuscripts. One thing in particular, I don't know if it exists in Arabic language or Persian and Turkish, but correct me if I'm wrong, It's these interlinear sentences. Yeah, I'm sure it exists in Arabic. Um, the thing with the West African languages, it can get very, very messy in terms of document layout. So you can have like 2 to 4 different languages on a single folio, on a single page. Oftentimes it'll be Arabic as the main body text, and in between the main sentence or the main body sentences are either full sentences or sometimes just phrases or sometimes just isolated glosses that are in another language, whether it be Hausa in Nigeria, Niger, or Wolof in Senegal, or Fulfulde, which is a very wide spanning language from like Senegal all the way to Sudan. Um, so those manuscripts pop up everywhere. And also Swahili, of course, this behemoth in East Africa, where it's the south of Somalia all the way to Mozambique and all the way into Central Africa, like the Congo. Oftentimes you have these interlinear glosses. Um, but sometimes you have intralinear glosses where it'll be on the same line, you'll have 2 languages, Arabic and another language. Um, and then, of course, you have just the primary Ajami manuscripts where it's just all one language, line after line, not including like, some religious supplication at the beginning or the conclusion, which is common in most Islamic manuscripts, I feel, regardless of language. But because after trying some existing OCR models before I started collecting manuscripts, I found that it's probably best to work with what's visually the easiest for these models to extract text from. So I ignored those interlinear manuscripts with the very complicated document layout and the interlinear sentences between lines. And I only focused on primary Ajami manuscripts, which are just line after line in one language, or type 2 manuscripts, which is which is part of the taxonomy that Ajami scholars use, which are just Arabic and another language on a single line. And I'm so far I've been ignoring everything else, but probably in like 10 years I can get to that because like to wait for the technology to catch up. Um, and yeah, so then I was going through all the online resources that I could find that host these Ajami manuscripts, places like Boston University's African Ajami Library, and they also have another repository called The Four Languages, which are Hausa, Wolof, uh, Fula, and Mandinka, which is one of the varieties of the Manding language, like Bambara, if listeners know what that is. And also the Himmel, the Hill Museum and Manuscript Library in the US. And then also I had contacts in Nigeria at the Arewa House, which is in northern Nigeria, and the Nigerian National Archives. I have some contacts there, and most of their manuscripts aren't online, like Boston University or Himmel. But after I explained the project and I started onboarding a lot of those scholars, they gave me access to these manuscripts, at least the ones that fit my criteria for what I want to work with, just these primary Ajami manuscripts.
Have they been
But
digitized or were they like
yeah,
put?
they've digitized them, but they're on site. Like they haven't put them online. But I think they'll start doing that. And they have an insane backlog. I've never I just saw pictures of the rooms and there's like hundreds of thousands of like manuscripts and like primary Ajami Hausa, but also Hausa and Arabic on the same page. And then also for Fulfulde, like primary Fulfulde and then also Fulfulde with Arabic on the same page. Those are the 2 biggest languages that Nigerian scribes created in the past few centuries. Um, yeah. So once I knew what kind of documents I wanted in terms of layout, then I went through all these resources and I just filtered through them. I spent months just looking through manuscript after manuscript and kind of just based off of the vibes of what the document looks like, I would kind of say like, I think this would be very bad for like a baseline experiment. So I was just looking for like the most clean cut manuscripts without a lot of marginalia or interlinear glosses or translations, stuff like that. And then I got down to about for the first round of experiments, I cut it down to about 29 manuscripts that after manual segmentation that I did resulted in I think 6,000 plus lines of Hausa and Fulfulde. There was an irregular balance between the two. It was mostly Hausa that I curated, but there was maybe 20% was full day. Um, then I um, then I started working with these four philologists in Nigeria. I think they're all professors at this point. And the way it worked was I was in contact with uh, oh, this is so complicated. So in outside of my PhD, I'm also really into like writing systems, like with Unicode and this kind of stuff. And I often research like new, like a lot of African writing systems. So because of that, I had a contact in Mali, and he was putting me in contact with like very remote people in Mali that use a very unique script. But anyways, after I was doing research with him, we were just catching up because at this point we are quite close friends. We've known each other for a few years, and we were just catching up. And I was explaining my PhD, and then he told me that he was actually more than 20 years ago. He was like an intern or an assistant at the Ahmed Baba Institute in like Timbuktu,
Yeah.
or I think now it's moved to Bamako.
Yeah.
But the famous Timbuktu manuscripts. He was part of the initial digitization team in like 2005 or something like that. And so he said, "Oh yeah, I can put you in contact with like, the famous librarian that saved these manuscripts from like insurgents and like 10 years ago or something." So I got in contact with him, and then he also put me in contact with someone he met in Nigeria who was into Ajami manuscripts, and that turned out to be someone that worked at the Nigerian Arewa House in northern Nigeria. And he's the guy that gave me all of these Hausa and Fulfulde manuscripts. So it's just a bunch of connections led me to a bunch of other connections.
Did you do all this remotely, or have you like
Yeah,
done that
everything was been
at all?
remote. Yeah, because I don't have a budget to go and do field work.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean that would be ideal. I would love that. But yeah, so I got in contact with Professor Musa uh, in Nigeria, and he is like the head of this Arewa house. And then I told him, okay, the way I want to work on this project is I've curated the best looking manuscripts, so to speak. And what I want to do then is clean it up in terms of segmentation. And I have my own methodology for that because people can have a bunch of opinions about that. So I did my segmentation. I got it reviewed by my assistant supervisor here at Uppsala, and she's very well established in the HTR field. Um, and then I told this initial professor in Nigeria that I would need at least two people per language so we can do like a sanity check to make sure one person types out all these manuscripts and then have another equally competent philologist review it and do some post-editing in case there were any errors the first time around. So then he put me in contact with two other people, and then for full day, and he himself was going to work on the Hausa typing. And for the reviewer of the Hausa typing, I got in contact with Professor Falu Ngom at Boston University. He's the head of this African Ajami library, and he's done countless things on West African manuscripts. He put me in contact with someone that he worked with in his initial work at Boston, and it turned out that person went back home to Nigeria to become a professor. And it turned out this guy knew all three people that I was suddenly going to work with. So he was just like, "Yeah, I can review Professor Musa's typings in Hausa." And I was just like, "Okay, great. Now, like, we're all a team now." So it was the five of us, these four Nigerian professors and me. So then I got in contact with Jonathan here, and he was gracious enough to give me access to eScriptorium. I set up my project. I went through all the documentation like 12 times to understand how to work everything. And it's been working great so far. Like I really like all the different tags so I can monitor everything. We even have tags for like indicating when a manuscript has been finished being typed. So that will alert the secondary philologist to go in and review it. And then after they review it, there's another tag we created to indicate that the review is done. Then I can export it. Then I can run my NLP experiments, doing like evaluations like character error rate, word error rate, this kind of stuff. Um, and it's been really nice. I also really like because when I'm working these philologists, I want it to be as seamless as possible. I don't want any technical burden on their part. If there's some technical issue, I want to handle it because that's my expertise. Because it's better if they work on what they're good at and I work on what I'm good at. But I haven't ran into any major technical issues at all. And the one piece of feedback I've gotten is this little window. Once you segment it and then you click on the line, it shows you only the line that you're typing at once.
Yeah.
And so the five, now six philologists that I'm working with, repeatedly, they've always said one after another, it's like, oh yeah, this is very nice. Like I don't have to look at the whole page. So that in particular, I know is like a very hot feature that eScriptorium boasts. That is it's philologist approved in my book.
Maybe take us,
Um,
show us one of the documents that you guys have worked on and kind of like your
yeah.
workflow with these particular languages.
Mm-hmm.
So no,
Let
they do
me.
look a little bit different than I think what most of our viewers might be used
Yeah. Yeah. Let me find like a visually interesting one.
to. It's one of the reasons I was excited to have you on because eScriptorium was developed for Arabic script. I don't think anybody was thinking that hard about Ajami script.
Yeah, yeah, I bet.
We originally we were very focused on Arabic, kind of brought Persian on, and then Turkish kind of crept in. Um, but I was excited to hear that you guys are able to use it for a use case that I don't think was kind of originally envisioned by the when we were developing things.
Yeah, yeah, I bet. But I'm really happy. I don't know if it was planned from the beginning. I think it was. I might have read the documentation. It was like one of the one of the mandates was like they want to be as like flexible with the script as possible. Like with so maybe in the future someone's going to use this for like Tibetan or like Mongolian or something.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
eScriptorium as a whole, like is the larger project of which we're just a part.
mm,
They definitely wanted like a every script eventually, but
yeah. All right. I'm going to share my screen now. So um, this is can you see my screen?
yes. Yep.
Okay. This particular manuscript is by Nana Asma'u, which is she's a very famous
Oh yeah.
yeah, oh yeah,
I know who
yeah,
that is actually. I don't
yeah,
know a lot about West African Islam.
yeah. She was I think 18th century, or she was born in the 18th century. She was a princess poet of some empire in West Africa, and she was also a polyglot. So she knew like Hausa and Fulfulde and Arabic and all these languages, and she would write in all of these languages. Like she would create manuscripts. Um, Sometimes it was translations between like one language to the others,
Mhm.
but sometimes it was original works specifically
Yeah.
meant for these things. And because of her, like we know a lot of stuff about history and stuff, also like internal stuff about like empires in that area in those regions. Um, but yeah, and this particular one is in Hausa, um, and yeah, this view platform. I don't know what you call this. I forget actually. This is is it this one? Yeah, this is the transcription panel.
Mhm.
Um, this is what I was talking about earlier, where all of the philologists love this. Like they don't have to look at the whole page. They can just focus.
Focus on the line.
Even
Yeah.
yeah, they can just focus on the line. Even if like this polygon mask, even if it slightly cuts out like a diacritic or something, because they know the language, they know what to look for. So if something's cut off by the polygon, they know like okay, it's just slightly above this or something. This example doesn't have it, but I've seen it in other examples. Um, so yeah, this feature is quite nice, and it really reduces the technical barrier for the philologist, which speeds up productivity
Yeah.
quite nicely, I believe. Um, so yeah, and I can just show you a little bit about this is another link. This is Wolof from uh, Senegal. And here you can see like the Bismillah. So like there's like some Arabic, but then like it slowly becomes something else. Um,
What
and hmm?
what are these marks that look like the V's?
That's a Dhamma
Okay,
in
it's a
West
double. Okay,
Africa.
you're just writing it
Yeah.
different.
Yeah, actually, I wanted to show you. Yeah. So also, because, um, so this Ajami script it started being used around the 900s in Africa and until now. But during the colonial era, a lot of it was kind of like mandated to switch to the Latin script by either the French or the British or whoever, the colonial authorities. But still, and because of that, the official script for a lot of these languages nowadays are the Latin script.
Mhm.
But unofficially and informally, like books are still being printed in the Ajami script. There was some orthography reform in the late 90s and early 2000s for different countries like Chad and Senegal, Guinea, Nigeria for the Ajami script. But these are prior to that time. And because, anyway, so because these languages had to switch to the Latin script, like during the colonial era, there's not a lot of like input methods for these languages. So I had to go and create the keyboards myself, like per language.
I was going to ask about
Um, yeah, so here's an example. Don't trust the French. This was Google translated. I do not speak French at all. But I kind of created these keyboards specifically to type like Ajami manuscripts for each of these languages prior to the, um, like the post-colonial restandardization. So sometimes um, so yeah, anyways, these are all of the letters that you need for Wolof basically. And I made like distinctions on how to type them. They map easily to like an English or a French phonetic input because a lot of people in West Africa and if my collaborators are in the West as well, they'll either have access to an English or a French keyboard layout like QWERTY or AZERTY for French, the latter is. Um, and yet, because of that, there are a lot of unique diacritics for West African languages. So this on the E key right here, this is like a tashkil, like a vowel diacritic, and this is for like the vowel, like an E vowel basically, because in Arabic this
right.
sound
There's
doesn't
not.
exist. But also, for example, like Dhamma, like over the centuries when the Arabic script was like spreading across the world, like I don't know about like more into like South Asia and Southeast Asia, because I know they have their Ajami or the modified Arabic equivalents, but at least in West Africa, the Dhamma slowly transformed into this
Huh.
kind of like greater than sign or this little horizontal V. And it creates the exact same vocalization. It's just graphically or graphemically it looks quite different.
Rotated some.
Yeah. And if you look at the O key, this is
Hmm.
completely new. This is like a demo with like a dot in the middle. Actually, I can bring up because it would be easier if I showed you yeah. So I wrote a paper after finishing the transcriptions for Hausa in Full Day, and I got accepted to ICTAR, the International Conference on Document Analysis and Recognition. And yeah, here. Yeah, so these are some Ajami specific letters. And at the bottom, you can see Ajami specific diacritics like tashkil. These are all tashkil, like with changing the vocalization. So on the very right, you see this dot underneath. This creates like 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 English letter E kind of vowel. And this was created because this doesn't exist in Arabic language, like Arabic language. The next one, like the second from the right, this is the Dhamma. And then you get more and more unique vocalizations because, Arabic, the vocalic inventory of Arabic is quite limited, three short, three
Three
long
sound.
vowels. Yeah. But in West African languages, especially like Hausa, there's many, many more
Mm.
vowels. I know all of these can be used in Wolof in particular. But I had to, and thankfully these are all in Unicode, so
Okay.
I
They already
consult.
exist.
Yeah, thank God, because then you have to wait time. Um, but I went through the resources at Boston University. They have these online um, um, Ajami keyboards, like as an input method.
Mhm.
Um, but because they're online and you can't really download them, then it's quite cumbersome. So here's an
Yeah,
example.
that's not ideal.
So here's an example. And these are part of like the four languages that Boston University really focuses on: Hausa, Mandinka, Wolof, and they haven't created a full-folded keyboard yet. But I analyzed these, and I consulted with Professor Falun Gong, who's the head of this project at Boston University, and I also contacted these people, Jamra Patel. They're a typography company in
Interesting.
Maine, I think, Maine, United States. And I've known them for a while because of my Unicode work. And I was just making sure that these are all the letters you need to conceivably type all of the manuscripts from Boston University. And
Mhm.
because I was getting so many manuscripts from Boston University, I said, okay, I can just use some software to recreate this in a way that you can download it to your keyboard, and you can just switch your keyboard the same way you switch between English and Spanish, for example. Like you click like Control Alt. Actually, I can show an example. Can you see this on my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. There's like a lot of stuff because working in linguistics, sometimes I need a lot of keyboards. But like for example, here I'm showing this is a Wolof Ajami keyboard that I created. Um, and then here is a Harari Ajami keyboard that I created. Um, and yeah, so it's really convenient to type in these. And then like you can go in and like type whatever you want to type like that. Um, but yeah, so I created those keyboards and then I deployed them to the philologists, and then they were able to go ahead and type all of these languages in Hausa, Wolof, etc. And I also made these open source, so these are online now. So you know, after publication, people in whatever country, if they work on these languages, then they can easily continue the work on their own projects. Um, and
That's really
I was really happy because yeah, eScriptorium is pretty flexible. Like they don't make you use a specific keyboard. So if you can customize stuff on your own like budget and your own time, then you can just easily use whatever you want. Um, and there's like a couple problems, but it's not eScriptorium. Like if you see on the screen here, like this
yeah.
square, this just means like it's so actually if you look above, I can zoom in. This letter I'm pointing at, it looks like a geme, like
Mhm.
a geme, but you see these three little dots on top.
Absolutely.
This is a completely different letter. So for example, it's yeah, it's this letter or which yeah, this one, the third from the right. This is a letter that's in Wolof. And it's a completely different sound. But these modifications, the same way like in Persian, most people listening to this probably are more familiar with Persian. You know, the g sound, they have like this extra, they took the kaf letter and then modified it for their own purposes. And the same thing happens, you know, throughout the rest of Asia and in Africa, like Malay in Malaysia and Indonesia, they have unique letters,
Good dots.
and Urdu and stuff like that. And yeah, the same thing happened with a lot of West and East African languages. But because it's like these letters are not as popular in terms of usage
Right.
by the communities, then the tech companies like Google, because I'm in a Google Chrome browser, they haven't updated their browser's font.
Uh,
That's why. So it's not an issue with eScriptorium at all. And
cool.
also when I export the text, it comes
Okay.
correctly. So
So
it's not an issue on eScriptorium's part at all. It's just whatever browser you're using, probably they haven't updated their font to include all of the Arabic characters possible in Unicode. Um, but still it works. And for my NLP purposes and computer vision purposes, there's no issue at all. It's just for viewing this. And I've explained this to the philologists, and they quickly pick up on that, and there's no issues there. Um, and yeah, that's pretty much what we've been doing so far. After that, I used a bunch of the OpenITI folks' models to evaluate these Ajami languages. Um, all of them very bad, but it's not through the fault of OpenITI. It's just these languages are so divergent from anything that they were working on with
no trade.
Arabic, Persian, Turkish, Urdu. Yeah, it's very much expected. Um, but I also like the fact that eScriptorium, you can upload these models and delete models and fine tune and recreate all of these models. And you can also export the transcriptions that they create. That was very, very nice for that ICDAR paper that I did. And for like ablation purposes, like comparative studies, it's very nice because in my field, you always have to do like these comparative studies between models, even if you're running baselines. So it was very convenient that those models were also open source. And also convenient that eScriptorium you can plug and chug basically. You can put so many of these models in and then run the test, and then download. And you can also visualize what their transcriptions are between the this panel, like yeah, here on my screen. So yeah, I think that's pretty much all we've been doing. Next steps for me, yeah, next steps for me are more on the text-based part than the computer vision part, like the transcription part. I'm gonna stop that for now and then focus on manipulating the digitized text that we've created here on the right, and seeing how I can create tools for the philologists that are interested in analyzing Ajami text. The same way like these language models that people use for whatever purposes. If you want to summarize an article, or if you want to extract certain keywords from like a book or something, there's so many tools that you can do that for many languages in the world now, or at least many high resource languages like English, French, Chinese, etc. To create a tool that would help Ajami philologists to more easily and efficiently analyze these manuscripts. That's the goal, basically. And also to see how far I can push the technology for this very small amount of data that we've collected.
How big of a corpus have you guys
We
uh,
just hit 10K sentences
okay.
with the Wolof. So the first paper that I was talking about earlier, for that was strictly on Hausa and Fulfulde. We had about 6,000 lines, and I just submitted a paper under review. Hopefully, it gets accepted. That's about another 4,000 lines. So we just crossed maybe like 10,000 lines. Yeah, a little more than 10,000 across I think like around 46 manuscripts from the 18th to 20th century, which is like the sweet spot I want to stick in, because older stuff, a lot of it, the document layout is like very complicated. It's very rich in like linguistic and historical data, but I'm gonna hold off on those for a while.
Harder.
Yeah, especially like that, like 14th century stuff. It's like very messy. And yeah, I lost my train of thought. Oh yeah. So yeah, our corpus is around 10,000 lines. We just I just onboarded another philologist. He's going to be working on Harari manuscripts from Ethiopia. I haven't segmented everything, so I don't know exactly how many lines, but I have around 7 manuscripts for that. And then there are also I'm also waiting to receive a huge chunk of Swahili manuscripts from the 19th century from Eastern Congo. And I'm working with a couple people from Tanzania and Belgium that are working on these Congolese manuscripts. And those are wild, man. I know you would get a kick out of those, because also the research these people are doing is really interesting.
Didn't
They're
even know that was a thing, that there were Swahili
exactly,
manuscripts in the
yeah,
Congo.
because man, they're working on stuff like like how code switching affects his like morphology and syntax, because all of these scribes are fluent in Swahili and Arabic, so they're trying to figure
Yeah.
out like can we see where they're more influenced by Swahili and where they're more influenced by Arabic, and also figuring out because East Africa had so much contact with Oman, but also because the Congo, because Swahili is such a big language in terms of not just popular like speaker count, but also geography. So
It's
like
really
northern Swahili manuscripts, they have more contact with Arabic from Sudan, but like more on the coast, on the actual Swahili coast, and more south towards Mozambique, it's more influenced by Omani Arabic. So then they're trying to figure out like, okay, which manuscripts are more influenced by what in terms of vocabulary and like syntax, stuff like that. It's like really, it's killer stuff in
cool.
in a very nerdy way. Um, but yeah, hopefully I can incorporate a lot of their Swahili manuscripts as well. And Swahili would open like a lot more data because it's just such a big language. And yeah, and I also have stuff like Mandinka, but I need to find like a philologist that's interested in working on that. But that's for future work. So, because right now I'm just 5 languages, I feel like is enough to work on in one PhD.
Yeah.
And
It's a
my
lot.
supervisors definitely agree on that also. Yeah, sometimes like when I meet them, they're like, I hope you're not telling us that you're bringing on a new language. Like you should just slow down. But yeah, so far 3 languages pretty much done. Hausa for full day Wolof. Harari from Ethiopia is in progress. And then hopefully before the end of the year starts, I'll start onboarding someone for Swahili. And yeah, that's And then the future goal, again, create useful tools for philologists that want to more easily analyze, extract key information, and do anything they want really with these manuscripts. Like for example, like for Arabic and Persian, there are a lot of tools, even like even just having a PDF and using like Google's resources, you can for an image of a manuscript, you can search through it through like, you know, Control F on your if you have a Windows keyboard. That kind of stuff, that's very, very powerful. And
Yeah.
I'm not at that level yet because also like I don't have nearly the amount of data that, you know, Google's OCR model has. But making my way towards having convenient tools for philologists. That's the ultimate goal. Because in these like low resource settings, which is a term in NLP oftentimes people use for languages that you don't have a lot of cleaned up data for. And as I was telling Jonathan before this interview, a lot of digital humanities is essentially low resource because a lot of it is very crude. There's no metadata. You don't have it in the correct format that you want to do anything useful. In a lot of these situations, having like working towards useful tools, it really makes a difference, and that adds up very quickly. So hopefully by the end of the PhD, I create something useful for these philologists. And
Wonderful.
eScriptorium is just one of the things that are making this possible.
I'm glad we could contribute. I mean,
Yeah.
this is great. Like that. I mean, this is why we developed eScriptorium, is so that other scholars and projects could take it and use it for really cool stuff. So,
Yeah. And y'all, I think you hit it right on the money.
well, Oreen, thank you so much for showing this to us.
Yeah.
Hopefully, we can check back in like next year once you've added
Yeah.
a couple more languages, not,
Yeah,
all
let's
90 or whatever that are you could potentially include.
yeah. Yeah, that would be interesting. That would be like then then I'll have like one very secure job for the rest of my
There
life,
you
just
go. Yeah,
adding
you
all
got
these
plenty of
languages.
stuff to work with. All right. Well, thanks so much, man. I'm gonna sign us off here.
Yeah, yeah, thanks.